Royal Guard jumped into Camilla's helicopter and destroyed her escape plan. She didn't wait for authorization, didn't file a manifest, didn't even bring her full security escort, just boarded a helicopter with a retired pilot and a destination no one was supposed to trace. But what Camilla didn't expect was the Coldstream Guard who read through the flight order, saw the fake clearance, and caught the escape plan mid-air. He didn't call for backup. He didn't raise his voice. He ran toward the rotors and jumped. Now, before we reveal where she was going and what she was trying to escape from, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from and hit subscribe with the bell icon turned on. Because today wasn't about grounding a flight. It was about a guard who refused to let the crown be carried away under royal silence. Windsor's upper helipad terrace had the kind of chill that soaked through uniform wool. Rain had swept in before dawn, thin, silvery, persistent, leaving the limestone flagstones slick beneath Sergeant Darian Wolfe's boots. The rotor pads, all four of them, sat empty under amber perimeter lights. The mist curled low, hiding the castle's east wing in a foggy silhouette. Wolfe stood just under the edge of the terrace canopy, hands behind his back, posture upright, but relaxed. He wasn't expecting anything. Nothing was logged, nothing was cleared, just another cold watch morning in a post that rarely stirred before 0700. He glanced at the aviation control display embedded in the wall panel beside him, still blank. No aircraft listed inbound. No aircraft scheduled outbound. So when a crewman approached, high-vis vest, soaked across the shoulders, carrying a small flight deck tablet and muttering under his breath, Wolfe turned to meet him with the calm readiness of a soldier who didn't like surprises. "Which pad?" Wolfe asked. "Pad C," the man replied, frowning. "They just radioed through, said to prep it for immediate VIP lift." "Who's they?" "No name, just a call sign and an operations push. Nothing royal stamped, but they told us to fuel for 40 minutes at full rotor. That usually means Windsor regional transfer." Wolfe frowned. "Nothing's scheduled today." The crewman shrugged. "Not my lane, mate. Just told to prep it." He moved toward the fuel hatch. Wolfe stepped inside the terrace control booth and tapped into the household aviation ledger. Every aircraft movement, every ground clearance, every pad assignment, it was all time-stamped, double-signed and recorded by security protocols. Pad C was listed dormant until Monday. No overrides, no temporary bookings, no linked pilot credentials. He switched systems, this time into the maintenance console, and checked inbound aircraft telemetry. One aircraft just pinged a handshake to the system. Tail code XRH221. Make Eurocopter EC-145. Registry Crown Internal Fleet. Current location Windsor Hangar 2. Status spooling. Wolfe stared at the screen. That aircraft was part of the older Crown support fleet, not assigned to the Queen Consort, not in rotation for public engagement, and not authorized for solo VIP departure without full manifest submission. He stepped back onto the wet flagstones, eyes scanning the terrace. Somewhere behind the scenes, someone had given a takeoff order for a helicopter that didn't exist on paper. And now that rain-soaked tarmac was being used for something that no one had cleared. He tapped the comms line. "Windsor Flight Control, this is Sergeant Wolfe at Pad C. What's the status of aircraft XRH221? A pause. "We don't have that listed in today's deployment, Sergeant. Should we?" Wolfe didn't answer immediately. He just turned toward the far hangar, where the sound of spooling rotors began cutting faintly through the morning haze. The air didn't feel quiet anymore. Wolfe walked with quiet purpose across the paved corridor, linking the upper pad to Hangar 2's internal annex. The rain struck his shoulders in steady rhythm, but he didn't flinch. His uniform was already damp, cap brim dripping. What mattered now wasn't comfort, it was protocol. He pushed through the entry hatch and made for the wall-mounted flight log terminal. It was unattended, just a lone screen humming in the corner, reflecting dull light off polished steel. A quick swipe of his clearance band pulled up the rotor activity for Pad C. There it was again. XRH 221, scheduled for a single flight departure, 0645, to a temporary estate pad in the Chiltern Hills. No return logged, no co-pilot listed. And under flight lead? Captain Rowan Firth. Wolf's brow lowered. That couldn't be right. Firth had retired the year prior after a cardiac episode during a training cycle. He wasn't active, he wasn't cleared, and he certainly wasn't reactivated without medical recertification. Wolf accessed the personnel duty role, confirmed Rowan Firth, retired. Status inactive, no clearances. His pulse tightened. He opened the clearance folder associated with this flight. Only one document had been uploaded, and it wasn't a formal order. It was a photocopy, low-res, unscanned, lacking watermark and counter-signature, a forged manifest if he'd ever seen one. The departure reason was listed simply as private consort logistics movement, no escort required, no flight code, no registry stamp, no cargo list. Wolf tapped into Windsor Aviation Control. "This is Sergeant Wolf. Confirm the pilot signature for the EC-145 lifting from Pad C." "Checking." One moment, a pause. Then, "No pilot signed in for that bird today. No manifest, no clearance. Nothing on the Royal Escort list either. That chopper should be grounded." Wolf exhaled slowly. Understood. He ended the line to gaze still locked on the flickering screen. This wasn't a paperwork error. It was a fabrication. Someone had inserted an unscheduled departure under the radar, with a grounded pilot's name, no listed cargo, and no operational oversight. And someone had expected the guard on duty to be too tired, too distracted, or too deferential to question it. But Sergeant Darian Wolf wasn't trained to stand aside. He was trained to spot what didn't belong. And this flight didn't belong to the Crown, it belonged to someone trying to outrun it. The sound of approaching tyres echoed oddly across the terrace, too smooth, too controlled for the usual palace motor pool. Wolf turned his head just as a matte black SUV with no royal insignia crested the access ramp, no license plates. Just rain sliding off the hood and tinted windows that gave no hint of passengers. It came to a full stop directly beside Pad C. The driver stepped out, unfamiliar, no formal livery. He didn't announce the arrival. He simply opened the rear door and remained still. Queen Camilla emerged a beat later. She wore a storm cloak drawn high around her shoulders, the hood raised. No crown, no brooch, no public escort, not even her usual press secretary. Just two aides behind her, one carrying a slim overnight case, the other hauling a long, reinforced document box with brass corners and a diplomatic lockplate. Wolf watched her movements. She didn't glance around, didn't speak to anyone. She moved like someone executing a step rehearsed a dozen times. "Keep the rotors hot," she murmured to the pilot already standing at the helipad stairwell. He gave a quick nod, too quick, and turned back toward the aircraft. Wolf's eyes narrowed. That wasn't a Crown flight jacket. No RAF insignia, no aviation rank. Just a blank flight patch and a call sign stitched in worn thread. Firth. He stepped forward, not blocking, not posturing, just present. "Ma'am," Wolf said evenly, "may I confirm your manifest?" Camilla didn't stop walking. "Everything's pre-cleared. Files been lodged." The man beside the helicopter stepped into Wolf's path, trying to wave him off with a smile. "Consort discretion clearance," he said smoothly. "Nothing to log. This is an internal goodwill transfer. No escort required." Wolf didn't move. "That's not the procedure for Pad C departures. I'll need verification." The pilot's smile faded slightly. "It's all been handled through the consort's private office." "We're cleared." Wolf didn't blink. "Then present the clearance." No one responded. The aide with the overnight case stepped onto the stairs. The other waited for Camilla, already climbing the ramp. The rotors began spinning faster, slicing through the drizzle, scattering rain off the stone in wide, shimmering arcs. Wolf took a single step back and tapped the comms mic clipped to his collar. "Windsor Ops, this is Sergeant Wolf. Pad C is active with an unscheduled consort departure. I need protocol verification now. No manifest, no signed pilot, no clearance trail. Confirm or deny." A burst of static came through. "Stand by." Camilla was nearly inside. The helicopter, fully lit now, began emitting that unmistakable high-pitched whine that came just before lift. And on the stone below, Wolf's boots didn't move. Because if this was a departure, it was the quietest one ever attempted by someone born into a throne. And he wasn't about to let it happen without someone answering for it. "Windsor Ops to Pad C," the voice crackled through Wolf's earpiece. "We have a routing anomaly." Wolf stepped behind the stair vehicle, half shielded from the rotor's rising gale. "Go ahead." "That chopper isn't listed under international departure. It's domestic. Short-range route filed for 25 minutes. Destination is a private LZ, unregistered." Wolf's brow furrowed. "Where?" "Coordinates drop in the Chiltern Hills. Estate listed under a holding company, North Redcliffe Trust." Wolf's eyes sharpened. He knew that name. The trust was linked to none other than Tom Parker Bowles, Camilla's son. The same estate used for private tastings and off-book meetings. The same parcel of land flagged in a custodial audit last spring, dismissed due to non-royal usage. He spoke low, deliberate. "Are there any formal handover documents tied to this transfer?" "Negative." "And nothing logged under custodial or legacy logistics. We're running a blank trail. And, Sergeant..." "Go ahead. That helipad isn't certified. No CCTV, no airstrip lockdown. If those cases land there, we lose custodial chain." Wolf looked up. Camilla was now inside the helicopter, seated behind tinted glass. The pilot returned to the stair rail and began pulling it up with a clank of wet metal. One aide had entered already. The other, the one with the long case, paused at the base, checking a phone, glancing toward Wolf with impatience. Wolf stepped toward him. "You'll need to wait. Visibility is dropping. Safety protocol requires a 10-minute delay for rotor friction checks in this weather." The aide scoffed. "We're under orders to lift immediately." "And I'm under orders not to compromise air safety for anyone." The man hesitated, clearly flustered. He stepped away, fumbling for his phone. Wolf didn't wait. He keyed into the custodian link on his secondary device. The call rang once, then twice, then it picked up. "Custodian line," a voice answered, steady, low. "Sir, this is Sergeant Darian Wolf at Pad C." A pause. Then the voice clarified, "This is William." Wolf drew breath. "Sir, the Queen Consort is boarding an unlogged helicopter with restricted cargo. No manifest, no verification, no escort. Destination is a private estate linked to Tom Parker Bowles. We believe the cargo is legacy affiliated." William didn't hesitate. "Is she aboard?" "Yes, sir." Wolf watched as the rotors surged louder. "Then you're not stopping a flight," William said calmly. "You're stopping a transfer." Another pause, then the command, "Hold position. Do not let that aircraft depart British custody. I'm authorizing Aerial Custodial Directive 14, immediate inspection and retention rights. Sergeant, that aircraft doesn't leave the ground." Wolf's jaw locked. Understood. And with that, he turned back toward the pad. Just as the skids flexed and the helicopter began to rise, Wolf moved fast. His boots hit the wet flagstones with sharp, steady rhythm as he circled back toward the edge of Pad C, where the helicopter's skids were already lifting a few inches off the ground. The rotors were near full thrust now, rain slicing in spirals as they cut through the morning mist. The tail light blinked red, then green, ready for ascent. But Wolf didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't shout. He just tapped into his encrypted comms again, his fingers moving quickly across the military-grade wrist tablet buckled under his sleeve. "Windsor Ops," he said. "Confirm reception of Directive 14 activated by Custodian Authority." The reply came swift. Confirmed. Clock synced. Windsor Ops is recording. All units notified. Custodial override is live. That was the first gate. The second was personal. Wolf scrolled to a locked contact tile, pressed his thumb to the scanner and waited. The call rang once, then twice. "Sergeant Wolf?" came the voice, calm, clipped. "Prince William." "Sir," Wolf said without preamble, "aircraft EC-145 is lifting now. Camilla is aboard. There is no escort, no manifest, no royal authorizations. Cargo is unknown, but consistent with protected legacy profiles. Departure is toward an unverified private estate, North Redcliffe Trust property." William's pause was brief. "Pilot?" "Identified as Rowan Firth, but Firth retired last year. Likely impersonation or unauthorized hire." Another pause. Wolf could hear the faint rustle of fabric, the movement of William rising from somewhere. Then, "Visual on the cases?" "Yes, sir, 2 total. 1 lock-cased, 1 reinforced document trunk. Both loaded manually. No seal tracking." William's tone dropped to ice. "If those cases land at that estate, they vanish. The legal chain ends." Wolf said nothing. "Sergeant, you are to board that aircraft, if necessary," William said. "Under Directive 14, you are the final line of custodial protection. This is not political anymore. It's institutional." Wolf glanced at the aircraft, its nose angled forward, skids beginning to hover cleanly off the wet pad. "Understood, sir." William's voice hardened. "Then do it." The line went dead. Wolf dropped the wrist tablet, tightened the leather strap around his forearm, and sprinted toward the aircraft. He didn't hesitate, because when an aircraft lifts under darkness, under false clearance, with the Queen Consort aboard and legacy cargo in the hold, what you're seeing isn't departure, it's extraction. And he was the only one who could stop it. The rotors screamed now, full blade arc, slicing through the drizzle like a threshing wind. The helicopter lifted by inches, skids scraping the pad edge before clearing it entirely. The downdraft scattered rain in wild spirals across the terrace. One aide was still climbing in, gripping the side rail. The other sat behind Camilla, clutching the diplomatic case like a lifeline. Wolf didn't stop to think. He sprinted, boots hammered wet stone, coat whipping behind him, eyes locked on the skids, just as they rose chest-height off the pad. The pilot saw him, brief flash of alarm, but didn't break lift. The aircraft began to tilt forward. Wolf threw his weight upward. His left hand caught the edge of the open bay. His boots slid against the slick skid rail, scrambling for friction, then locked. He pulled himself up with sheer momentum, slammed one knee against the inner lip of the door, and swung inside. The cabin lurched. "Get him off!" the pilot shouted from the cockpit, voice sharp through the headset mic. "He's not cleared." Camilla turned in her seat. Wolf landed in a low crouch near the cargo deck, soaked through, breathing steady. He rose in one smooth motion, boots wide for balance. His gloved hand rested lightly on the wall handle. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but in stunned disbelief. Wolf's voice was low, but it carried clean over the rotor's howl. "Ma'am, under Custodial Directive 14, this aircraft is now detained." The aide clutching the case shrank back slightly. Camilla said nothing. Outside the window, Windsor's upper terrace dropped away. Trees blurred beneath them. The helicopter had cleared the perimeter, but it hadn't left the Crown's reach. Not yet. Wolf reached for his internal comms, adjusting the headset panel mounted near the cargo rail. His thumb pressed the encrypted Crown Net override. "Windsor Ops, this is Sergeant Wolf. Directive 14 active. I am aboard EC-145. Unauthorized liftoff confirmed. Piloting is rogue. Confirm command response." The reply came within seconds. "Directive acknowledged. Pilot of EC-145, this is Windsor Control. You are carrying a detained subject and undeclared cargo under active custodial review. Return to Windsor immediately, or your aircraft will forfeit diplomatic immunity." The cockpit didn't reply. Sui. But Wolf could see the co-pilot glance back toward him, then toward the small warning light now flashing amber above the altimeter. Camilla still hadn't spoken. But her silence wasn't power anymore. It was unraveling. The kind that begins when control no longer lifts with the aircraft. It falls with the truth that caught up to it mid-air. The helicopter leveled off just under 2,000 feet. Below them, the patchwork of Windsor's outer grounds gave way to fog-laced tree lines and distant farms blurred by rain. The cockpit remained quiet, too quiet. No chatter, no clearance requests. Just the muted glow of dashboard instruments and the low hum of authority being tested. Sergeant Wolf shifted forward, boots planted against the floor grid, shoulders square. Camilla turned in her seat, slowly. The hood of her storm cloak had fallen back. Her hair clung lightly to her cheeks, damp from condensation. But her spine stayed straight, her voice level. "Do you have an idea what you're doing?" Wolf didn't flinch. "Yes, Your Majesty. I'm protecting what the late Queen asked us to protect." She studied him. "You've boarded a royal aircraft without invitation, interrupted a consort's travel, and issued a public detainment in front of my staff." He nodded once. "I've followed Crown protocol." She tilted her head. "You've followed William's orders." Wolf kept his tone even. "He's not giving orders. He's enforcing the law." The pilot's voice cut in, finally, tense, clipped. "Ma'am, we're being shadowed. There's a secondary aircraft at our altitude, military signature. They're not hailing, just matching course." Wolf stepped closer to the cockpit bulkhead, one hand braced against the frame. He leaned toward the open mic toggle. "Windsor Command, confirm EC-145 is being shadowed." "Confirmed, Sergeant. Intercept vehicle is holding visual lock at 1.9. Call sign Crown Bird 2. No weapons, no deviation. Standing by for return confirmation." Camilla's expression hardened. "You're staging a mutiny, Sergeant Wolf." He met her gaze. "No, ma'am. I'm stopping a transfer. You left with legacy cargo. You bypassed manifest verification. You used a fake pilot ID to fly toward a private estate linked to your son. That's not mutiny. That's interdiction." She looked away. "You'll lose your position for this." He replied without pause. "Then I'll lose it doing what I swore to do." He pressed the comm again, transmitting on the aircraft's command band. "This is Sergeant Wolf. Custodian authorization confirmed. Directive 14 remains active. Pilot will return to Windsor immediately or be designated in violation of airspace immunity." The co-pilot turned in his seat, voice lower now. "Captain, we've been flagged. That Crown Net code is authentic. If we cross further into uncontrolled airspace under detainment, we void sovereign immunity. They'll ground us on arrival, possibly detain us." The pilot's jaw clenched. His hand hovered over the throttle. Camilla didn't speak. She didn't need to. The silence around her had begun to curdle. Not power anymore, but isolation. The illusion of control unraveling under pressure. Then the chopper banked, slowly, deliberately, angling back westward. Windsor was still shrouded in rain, but it was waiting, and the sky had just given her back. The return vector was fast and sharp. No chatter from the cockpit, just coordinated descent, banking tight around the rain-washed rooftops of Windsor's perimeter estate. The second aircraft, a Royal Intercept chopper, held steady off their left wing like a quiet reminder. "We're still watching." Inside the cabin, no one spoke. The aide with the diplomatic case had gone pale, knuckles white around the handle. Camilla sat unmoving, posture straight, lips tight. If the Queen Consort felt fury, she kept it sealed under layers of practiced restraint. But Wolf could feel it in the silence, the humiliation coiling like smoke. The skids hit wet stone with a hard thunk. They had returned to lower pad B, the inspection pad. No ceremony, No shielded terrace, just open sky and an awaiting perimeter of black uniformed heritage security vehicles already forming a semicircle. Wolf unclipped the bay handle and dropped to the pad just as the co-pilot powered down the rotors. Rain lashed sideways, wind funneled low between the maintenance hangars. His boots hit the concrete, steady. The cabin door opened. Camilla stepped out slowly. Same cloak, same scarf. But something in her face had shifted, not defeat, not panic, but the frozen calculation of a chess player caught 4 moves too deep. She didn't speak, didn't acknowledge Wolf. Prince William was already waiting. He emerged from a matte black vehicle with no crown insignia, just a rain-slick field coat, his hands uncovered, collar turned up against the wind. No entourage, no umbrella, just him, walking toward the aircraft with the quiet heaviness of command. Wolf stepped back 1 pace and came to attention. William approached the edge of the pad, eyes fixed on Camilla. The wind blew his coat open slightly, but he didn't flinch. "There are easier ways to ask for removal from the custodial index," he said, voice calm. Camilla didn't respond. William didn't push her. He turned instead toward Wolf. "Where are the cases we took?" Wolf motioned to the aide, who still stood inside the cabin holding both trunks. "Escort them down," William said. Wolf stepped forward and extended a hand, not forceful, but absolute. The aide looked to Camilla once. She gave the slightest nod. The cases were surrendered. As they were carried toward the archival escort van waiting beyond the barricade, William didn't turn to watch. He only said, "Let's see what was meant to disappear." The inspection bay wasn't far, just across the eastern access lane, flanked by 2 archive vans, with rear doors open and a pair of Heritage Protocol officers already standing by. Wolf walked beside them, rain still falling in slow, misty sheets as the trunks were rolled into the covered hangar. Inside, the atmosphere changed. Sterile lighting, climate control, no stone, no spectacle, only procedure. Case 1 went first. Matte black. Brass-reinforced corners, crown seal half scuffed at the edge. Wolf input the override code into the digital clasp. The lock released with a hydraulic click. He lifted the lid. Inside lay 2 thin document folders, in velvet wraps and a bound leather folio, marked only with the embossed royal cipher, ER2. The pages inside were yellowed but sealed in acetate, clearly preserved from prior archival treatment. One of the heritage officers leaned in and murmured, "That's royal correspondence." Wolf glanced at the letterhead, 1983. A handwritten exchange between the late Queen and a Commonwealth leader during a constitutional crisis. Still classified. Still part of the Royal Record Wing's non-exportable archive. This wasn't a keepsake. It was diplomatic powder. He resealed the folio and opened the second trunk. This one contained a padded file box, neatly arranged, its labels hand-typed. At the top, foundational transfer drafts, family trust consolidation. The pages were legal documents, drafts, proposals. None signed. But all detailing the conversion of Crown-linked charitable properties into a new private entity listed under Parker Heritage Holdings, proposed. The goal was clear: divestment of certain Queen-approved initiatives, retirement homes, education centres, memorial gardens, away from Crown administration and into a trust structure owned privately by Camilla's family. Wolf said nothing. He moved to the third and final case. It held a single envelope, thicker, padded, wax-sealed with the crest of Clarence House. A handwritten label in dark ink. TPB Holdings, Estate Registry Drafts. He opened it carefully. Inside was a stack of land valuation maps, stewardship claims, and internal routing projections. Several rural titles were cross-linked to legacy farmlands once owned by Queen Elizabeth's private estate, not yet publicly transferred, still under dormant custodial review. The entire envelope was a blueprint, not for escape, for extraction. William entered the inspection bay behind him. He didn't speak right away. He simply walked to Wolf's side and looked into the final case. Wolfe straightened. "None of these items were authorized, sir. No manifest, no legal handover, no collection trust notifications. She was leaving with crown-bound materials, under cover of a private rotorcraft, toward a holding estate that's been flagged twice before." William nodded once. "She wasn't leaving the country," he said. "She was leaving the institution." Wolfe resealed the final case and placed a red custodial lockout tag over the latches, marking it for restricted review and non-public containment. One of the heritage officers stepped forward. "Orders, sir." William's reply was immediate. "Transfer all three to the Royal Collection Trust. Immediate embargo. No release. No inspection. No legal access without formal custodian override." He looked to Wolfe. "Travel permissions?" Wolfe responded crisply. "Suspended. Effective immediately." William took a slow breath, then stepped away, and Wolfe stood silently as the carts rolled out, carrying not just cargo, but the collapse of a plan that had almost succeeded. Almost. The rain had thinned to a drizzle, just enough to silver the surface of the helipad. A faint morning light pressed through the clouds, muted and low, as if the sky itself had quieted. The helicopter sat idle now, engine off, rotor blades motionless, body streaked with mist. The aircraft that had tried to slip away unnoticed now looked exposed, like a secret that failed to stay hidden. Sergeant Darian Wolfe remained nearby, helmet tucked under one arm, posture still precise. He didn't look triumphant. He didn't need to. Some missions didn't ask for victory, just interruption. He had done exactly that. He heard footsteps behind him, measured, unhurried. Prince William approached alone, gloves tucked into one pocket, rain still beading off his coat. No one else followed. No press, no officers. Just the future king, and the man who'd held a helicopter in the air with nothing more than procedure and principle. William stopped a pace away, eyes fixed on the grounded aircraft. "You jumped into a helicopter today, Sergeant." Wolfe's reply was simple. "It was leaving with things that weren't hers, sir." William nodded once, the gesture small but decisive. "And now they're not." They stood there a moment longer. No words passed, but something unspoken moved between them, a recognition of shared burden, of doing what had to be done, not for attention, not for reward, but for continuity, for the quiet survival of something larger than any one person. Behind them, the three archival cases disappeared into the waiting vans. Red seals glinted on the side, faint through the rain. The convoy turned down the slope, headed for the sealed annex deep within Windsor's stone flank, where the crown stored the parts of itself too valuable to display. William turned to go. "Get some rest, Sergeant." Wolfe didn't answer. He just stood at ease and watched the vans vanish into the fog. No medals, no headlines, just silence returning to the pad. And a legacy returned to its rightful place, not through battle, but through a man who refused to let it vanish behind tinted glass and false clearance. Sometimes, saving the crown didn't mean defending it from attack. It meant catching the moment it tried to escape itself. Should a royal guard ever have the right to physically board a Queen's aircraft mid-lift? Was this really just a logistical trip, or something more calculated? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you believe protocol should outrank privilege, hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed with the bell icon turned on so you never miss a moment behind the crown's closed doors. And share this video with someone who still thinks legacy can be packed in a box. Watch the next video on your screen now. And we'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place.